Hello guys, today we're going to talk about the movie Hardcore Henry. So this is a very interesting movie. Corey's in the background too, by the way. The movie was released in 2015. It's rated R and it's an hour 36 long. It has 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb with about 80,000-ish user votes and 51% by Metacritic with 30 critics. It stars Charlton Copley, who was in District 9, and Tim Roth, who's been in a lot of movies, a lot of Quentin Tarantino movies like Pulp Fiction. The movie was also directed by, I can't pronounce his name, Ilya, we'll say N, because I can't pronounce his last name. This was really his big movie. He also directed Biting Elbows, that motherfucker. Probably a short or something. On Rotten Tomatoes, the movie has 50% by critics with 143 critics and 54% by audiences with about 18,000-ish user audiences. And the critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is that Hardcore Henry seems poised to reinvent the action flick, but without a story or characters worth caring about, its first-person gimmick quickly loses its thrill. We'll get back to that in a little bit. The movie is available to stream on USA Network. I'll say that it's only available to rent and buy on YouTube, Amazon, Redbox, Google Play, iTunes, Fandango, Vudu, Microsoft Store, and AMC On Demand. So the movie was released on DVD in 2016 as well. Okay, so a little bit about it. It's oh man, what's the best way to describe this movie? It reminds me a lot of like first person. It reminds me of like those found footage horror movies, but it's not. But instead of a person's like, oh, I'm holding a camera, it's more like it's actually from a person's viewpoint. So it's a little different in that regard. But a lot of the stuff is similar, like the way the person turns, the way they look at people, certain things. There's some ambitious stuff in it too, though. Like the action scenes can be pretty crazy. I do like the action scenes. Acting solid. I don't have any issues with the acting by any means. However, they are right. The story is definitely kind of run of the mill. The characters aren't really written with a lot of depth. And granted, since they're being super experimental, I get maybe being a little light on those things, but you could also make the case that since they're pioneering something, you need to really hit it in every element out of the park for it to be successful, and I don't think they did that. The characters don't really have a ton of depth. One or two, you could argue, have a little bit of depth, but not really. The villain, they picked a decent villain, but he has like no backstory. But he has an interesting ability, and he's acted incredibly well. And he looks good for a villain for something like this. But he has no depth. You don't know shit about him at all. But you don't even know how he got this ability at all. But but there's some interesting little things with the character that helps the main guy. The main guy you don't really get to know really. His past is pretty much a mystery, so it's kind of you don't really know a lot about him. So I think it's because so you can put yourself into the shoes. But in all honesty, it's it works for video games, but for something like this, where you're not actually playing the thing, you need to give a little bit more oomph for it to carry. I will say the climax. I will say this: the climax is my favorite part of the movie because that's when stuff gets really crazy and those kind of that hub POV shot really shine. Other parts of the movie, there's action sequences, but I also feel like it was a bit too much running around. I kind of would like a moment or two where characters just sit down and just kind of talked about whatever. And another good scene is when they actually did that with one character. Although I will admit, it's a little, even that's handled with quite a bit of zaniness. That this film's already zany enough. I mean, if you're gonna be zany, you kind of have to maybe tone some other things down so that the other stuff can be more focused on. But yeah, it's. I definitely don't regret seeing it, and the way they ended it, you'd think that they would do another one, but so far I don't think they have. I mean, you don't even have to keep the same characters really, because the main guy you don't really. I think you see his face once, and even then I couldn't really decipher what he looked like. You could have, and you could have the same thing. You could have different characters because a lot of these characters in this film you could erase. That's not giving away anything, but you could definitely do a sequel to this without having to get a lot of people at all. But the biggest issue with this movie is that it's not. They're right. The story is just there's not enough. There needed to be a bit more storytelling element because the action, and usually I like action movies where the story isn't the main focus, but for something like this, because this movie isn't a bare bones action movie, there's stuff going on. There's a lot of different stuff going on, not the typical action movie stuff. So there's not really. So the base is very complex. So to try to add more to it just makes everything complex but yet empty because, like I said, the characters don't get a lot of depth. So, like I said, it's so pretty much what the critics say is pretty correct. But however, I will say that the pub shot never really loses its thrill. I will admit there's moments where I'm like, can we get to know these characters a little bit better? Because sometimes I feel like that I didn't really. The story was, like I said, kind of by the numbers, but not really. Kind of basic, but not really. It's that kind of thing. It's definitely worth a viewing though, at least once. Some people may love it. I liked it. I would watch it again now, and I probably might follow it better, might like it more. But as it stands, I'd say it's good. I wouldn't say it's great because, like I said, if the characters had a bit more depth to them and maybe the story was a bit more streamlined, then I think I think it would have been a great movie. But it's good. It's definitely worth a watch. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it. It's a good movie. Check it out. It's recent, so you can get it on DVD anywhere, really. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the videos. And